In this episode of the Extended Forecast, I sit down with Vanessa Alonso, a broadcast meteorologist in St. Joseph, Missouri, who has worked at several markets over her career. Alonso recently served on the board for the American Meteorological Society, helping broadcast meteorologists earn their seal and progress their career. Over more than a decade, Alonso has experienced hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards, most notably moving from Joplin, Missouri to a new market just over a month before a violent EF5 tornado destroyed the region. We talk about her memories of that 2011 storm, how Hurricane Andrew in 1992 helped develop her love for weather, and what the future holds for her. There's so much to learn in the next half hour. Join us for the fun chat.
It's been kind of a long road to get to this point. Glad we can finally meet up and have the chance to chat.
No, and thank you for inviting me, Matthew. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, of course. And one of the reasons that it was so hard to kind of link up is your busy schedule and my busy schedule. Is it always this busy for you, or is this like a particularly busy time for you the past few weeks?
Well, I joke around and I tell people I'm a busy bee. I've been a broadcast meteorologist now for 15, going on 16 years. I have worked in various markets across the Midwest and the Southeast. I have had a chance to work at the Weather Channel, which is a dream job for so many people as a weather producer. But I am currently based at KQ2 News, KQTV in St. Joseph, Missouri. We are a small market about 45 minutes north of Kansas City. But I always joke around saying we're like a small town in a big market because since we're so close to Kansas City, we talk about Kansas City a lot. I mean, we are home of the Kansas City Chiefs training camp. I have had the opportunity to be out there when they're here during their training, and I got a chance to be up close with, and get to meet people like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. No, guys, Swifty fans, Taylor Swift has never attended a training camp session. Trust me, I have my sources to confirm on that. But I mean, it's not just my job that keeps me on my toes. I have been very blessed to have been able to give back to the broadcast meteorologists industry through my involvement with the American Meteorological Society. Over the last 5 years, I have served on various boards and committees, which does include the Station Scientist Committee, the Board of Broadcast Meteorology, which I served as chair in 2024, and I was the inaugural chair for the new Board of Digital Meteorologists that just recently launched the Certified Digital Meteorologist program, which is very similar to the CBM or the Certified Broadcast Meteorologist program. And it's because of the growing spectrum we are seeing in the digital and streaming platforms.
And of course, I'm sure all that has kind of been a dream come true, but also kind of overwhelming at times, I imagine.
Well, my planner is my best friend. And I'm one of those people, I cannot just rely on my phone. I have to rely on a written planner
Hmm.
where it's funny, like my brain tends to remember dates easier if I write things down because my brain tends to remember my own handwriting over something that's written on a phone. So I rely a lot on my planner. And I always tell people, hey, I can't do a certain time, a certain day because I have this meeting or I have that meeting. But I am very lucky that I have a fantastic team at the TV station that is well aware of my involvement with the AMS and what I do for the broadcast meteorology industry and, giving back from to interns to job shadowing. So, I mean, as long as I have my planner and I kind of like have it nearby, it helps keep me in check, especially on busy days when we have severe weather like we did yesterday here in the Midwest.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I was back at NC State at college was I had to like write my notes down after class to kind of have it lock in my head so I could have it moving forward, not have to look at anything, just kind of knew what was what. That's how I kind of organized it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back also to my college days. I was actually the first student from my alma mater, the University of Miami, to receive a bachelor's degree in communication in both broadcast journalism and meteorology. There was no such thing as a broadcast meteorology program when I first came to the University of Miami. People who went through the meteorology major at the University of Miami, they either just did straight on meteorology, they had no broadcasting classes, or they did the broadcasting program and then they just went on and did their Mississippi State program. But I was very determined to do both broadcasting and meteorology during my time there. So I helped create the broadcast meteorology curriculum. And now 15, no, wait. Oh man, I feel old saying this. 17 years later, we have had very successful students graduate from that program. Class of 2008. So that's to show you how old I keep forgetting I'm turning 40 next month. I'm like, yeah, Vanessa, the early 2000s are a very long time ago. So, in the time that I have graduated, I think that students who have also gone through that program have gone on to have successful careers at places like the Weather Channel. I believe someone I know got as far as Tampa, got as far as also being a chief over in the Carolinas. So, I mean, the University of Miami's broadcasting program, especially in meteorology, has been able to continue to grow because of what I started.
Now, I'm sure obviously you had a lot of hurricane experience in Florida. That's one of the reasons that you had the love for weather in the first place. What were your memories from different hurricane seasons while you spent time in the Miami area?
So I'm a born and raised Miami girl. What sparked my interest in meteorology? Uh, Hard to believe it's already going to be almost 35 years. It was the morning of August 24th, 1992, when Category 5 Hurricane Andrew hit, then called Dade County. Now it's Miami-Dade County, but Dade County, Florida. And I was living in the Coral Gables, Kendall area at the time. And for a lot of weather nerds out there who are aware, I didn't live too far from where the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service office, Miami, sorry. I've been up since 2:30 in the morning, Matthew.
Hey, I get it. I get it.
So I lived in the Coral Gables, Kendall area, and that wasn't too far away from where the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service Miami office was based, on the 12th floor of this big building, right across the street, actually, from the University of Miami off of US 1. And a lot of weather nerds who remember very well, it was during Andrew was when we lost the Miami radar. You had that famous radar image of Andrew making landfall near Elliott Key and about to hit Homestead, Florida City, and areas in South Dade, before the radar was knocked off the building. And I remember very well listening to Brian Norcross on the radio when things were getting really bad. And he was just the voice of reason. He was the voice of calm during such a dark time for Miami, in that time of August 1992. And I think, for me, being 7 years old and not understanding why my house was spared, but yet you went miles down the road on US 1 and you went into places like, Cutler Bay, Homestead, Florida City, the Redlands, and you're like, you couldn't recognize anything. My father, who lived in Miami his entire life, once you got south of Kendall Drive, he couldn't recognize where he was, and he knew South Dade like the back of his hand, and he couldn't even remember. So it was like a bomb just went off, and it just got worse the further south you go until you got to the Keys, where things looked normal. So that's just to show me exactly where that eye and that eye wall went through. And it just opened up my eyes to a lot of things of like, why did this happen? And then I remember 2 weeks later when Miami-Dade Public Schools finally started classes. We ended up starting classes 2 weeks late because of Andrew. I remember going to the library and just getting my hands on everything I possibly could on weather. And then that interest kind of became a hobby. And then as the older I got, I started tracking hurricanes on the famous maps. Back in the day, kids, we didn't have computers or iPads. We actually took a map and we draw where the center was. So I was always watching all the meteorologists back home and just plotting the coordinates and making the little tracks on my maps as the storm went. So my interest just became a hobby. And then when I learned you can make a career out of it by becoming a meteorologist, I was like, I love math. I love science. I actually did better in math and science than I did in English and grammar. So I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to go for this. I love math and science. I'm going to go for this. So that's when I went ahead and I applied at the University of Miami. I wanted to stay in the state of Florida because I knew with this position of being a broadcast meteorologist, it was going to require me to move away from home. So I wanted to make sure I spent the rest of my college years at home. So the only schools that offered meteorology at the time was the University of Miami and Florida State University. And my dad, who's a University of Miami alumni, and for those of you, nothing against Florida State, great meteorology program, but my dad refused to have me become a Florida State Seminole. He just refused. He's like, no, you're going to be a hurricane.
Yeah, you got to stay down here.
And ironically, Miami Hurricanes. And the backstory with that was because of the 1926 Great Miami Hurricane. The University of Miami was just starting up and they decided to become known as the Hurricanes.
It's like a foreshadowing to the future, what was going to happen.
Yeah, and so during my time at the University of Miami, I had the opportunity to go through the crazy seasons of 2004, 2005, in which every week we had to prepare for a hurricane. It was just ridiculous. And, people forgot that, Katrina made landfall in South Florida as a Category 1 before it became the monster storm in the Gulf of Mexico. And then history was written in the books with the devastation that happened in New Orleans just a few days later. And so, going through a college student and seeing the devastation of the 2004 and 2005 seasons in Florida was just a wild ride. But of course, nothing would prepare me for the 2020 and 2021 seasons and every other hurricane season since then in my professional career. But I mean, I love all different types of weather. I actually was at a school talk yesterday and one of the kids asked me, what is your favorite type of weather? And I said, I love reading anything about winter weather, blizzards, tornadoes. But if you were to ask me where my passion stands, it's hurricanes. And it was because of my experience with hurricanes I am where I am today.
Now, you mentioned about having to move away a lot of times for your first or second or third job. Now you're out in the Midwest. What is it like now covering the blizzards and the tornadoes versus the hurricanes back in Florida?
So this is another story that a lot of people still have a hard time believing. So my first market was actually Joplin, Missouri. I was in Joplin from 2009 to 2011. And when I say 2011, I get this face from a lot of people like, oh my God, was she there? And this is the part that freaks people out when I tell them this. I moved from Joplin to Kirksville, Missouri for my second job on April 15th, 2011. And then 5 weeks later, history wrote itself when the monster EF5 tornado hit the city. And that monster completely decimated everything that I knew in that part of town the 2 years that I lived there. To give you an idea of where I lived exactly just a few blocks from Joplin High School. And anyone who has heard the horror stories of Joplin, especially now with the popularity of the new Netflix documentary movie that just came out not too long ago, everyone who has read or done their research knows that Joplin High School was completely wiped off the map when the tornado. And thank God the high school graduation was not held at the high school, because if it would have, I think we would have lost a lot more lives that day. Mm-hmm. And I have had the chance to, because the fact that I just moved away from Joplin just weeks before, I had to cover the aftermath. And for me, dealing with Hurricane Andrew as a child and then having to be in my early career in my 20s, just starting my second job and having to cover the aftermath of a devastating EF5 tornado that just completely wiped off the face of the earth an area that you knew. It really did open my eyes more of how important our jobs as broadcast meteorologists are, that weather does not, discriminate. It doesn't matter. There's no age, no color, no religion. It affects us in all ways, shape, and of forms, and it's our job to try to keep people safe.
Yeah, and having lived there too, one of the things about hurricanes or tornadoes or whatever is even after they make the news for a couple of weeks, usually they'll go away the national headlines and move on to something else. But if you live there, it's still affecting you months, if not years afterwards.
I am gonna say, with the new documentary that just came out, you know, as the years go by, it's like the memories are still engraved in the back of your head, but you learn how to just move forward and move on, because you just can't dwell on something horrific like that, because if you do, it's just going to eat you alive. And then when the documentary came out, I'll be honest with you, I've only seen the documentary once, and I knew a lot of emotions, a lot of memories were going to come back for me, and honest to God, I couldn't stop crying after I watched it, because it was just so many memories that came back for me. And I think it was because, I will admit, after Joplin, I did have this kind of like guilty feeling, because I moved away from there 5 weeks before. And I was raised Catholic. I was raised in a very religious Catholic family. So I do believe God works in mysterious ways and things do happen for a reason. So for me, it was one of those things where I kind of like, I questioned God for a long time. Like, why did you take me out of there? Like, why did I live when so many people that I knew lost their homes? I had friends that lost friends and who lost family members in Joplin, and it was very hard for me to digest all of that when Joplin first happened, and those memories and those feelings just came back for me when the documentary came out. So I guess it's one of those things where it's like you learn to move on, but you don't forget. And I think watching the Netflix documentary opened up a lot of old wounds that I thought I put away for 14 years, but decided to just resurface after 14 years. But I will say I was very pleased on how well of a good job the people who put that documentary together really did. And it's a very powerful documentary if no one has watched it yet.
Yeah, I watched it back when it came out, and I'd obviously seen a lot of stuff about it before 2011, 2012. But they did a good job of like recapping it and also having like the human emotion elements to it as well. Because that's a big part too with storms. It's not just the damage, it's not just the loss of life, but also the people that live, the emotions they're going through, seeing their neighborhoods, their houses, their family and friends that are completely affected forever.
And this is something that I have learned from covering a disaster like Joplin and other natural disasters I've had to cover over the 15-year career, is that not one person's story is different. Everyone has a different story. In Joplin, I had someone who lived by surviving in a crawl space. I had someone who survived by just going over to a neighbor's house. I had someone that was at the high school graduation, and thank God they missed they missed the tornado by only a few blocks. So it was like just hearing all these survivor stories. It made you realize everyone has a story. Has you know everyone has a story to tell. There's always a beginning, middle, and end. So I always try my best to make sure everyone gets a chance to tell their story, because everyone has a different story of how they survived a certain event or a certain storm.
Yeah, and since then you've gone on to a couple other places as well, and you've gotten your NWA seal and your AMS certified broadcast meteorology seals. What did it mean to you to get both of those, and why was it important that you certified yourself so that people could see not only that you know the science and are good on TV, but you're both together at the same time?
So Over my 15-year career, not only did I work in Joplin, I worked in Kirksville, Missouri. I worked in Kirksville, Missouri for 6 years at KTVO as a bilingual English-Spanish meteorologist because of my background of growing up in a diverse area like Miami. You had to learn Spanish in a very diverse area like Miami, Florida. And then I went over to Topeka, Kansas. I worked at KSNT as a storm chaser, a videographer, and the weekend morning meteorologist before KQ2 News called me for the first time and asked me to go work with them in St. Joseph. And, the AMS Certified Broadcast Meteorologist program was always on my list of goals. But for about 10 years, for some reason, I just had this fear of failing, that I wasn't good enough to do it. And it wasn't just because of my confidence. This business has been very good to me, but there have been times this business has been very cruel to me. Unfortunately, this business has shown me that not everyone is your friend. And unfortunately, you can't trust everybody and you work with in this business. Because even though you're in the majority of the people that I have known in this career have been amazing to me, have treated me so well, and have given me the love and support I've needed. Unfortunately, there are some people out there who, for some reason, were always somewhat jealous of me. Like it was either because I had a degree in meteorology, or because I had the passion for meteorology, or I'm a female, I'm Hispanic. Like I felt like there was always a target behind my back with somebody because they had something against me because of my passion or because I was a female and because of my background. And the sad thing is, it's like I never did anything to a certain person. I always treat everyone with so much love and kindness because my parents always taught me treat others the way how you want to be treated. And so I have always gone out of my way to be kind and be supportive to so many people, because this business is it's hard, especially when you're in your early career. You're thousands of miles away, maybe hundreds of miles away from family, and it's just me and myself and I trying to pay the bills, trying to get the experience, trying to build your resume, and you need that support from others to kind of like lean on each other and support each other. And again, I had the chance to have amazing people help me with that, but there was always that one person or that one boss that I did not get that support I needed, and I just felt somewhat down. And it wasn't until 2016 when someone very near and dear to me, who was actually my first chief in Joplin, Doug Hetty from KOAM, he sat me down and he was encouraging me to get my seal for years and years. And at the AMS broadcast conference in Austin, he literally had a sit down, had a heart to heart with me. And he said, Vanessa, you have so much potential in this world. You have so much to give in this business. But I think what's holding you back is because you don't have your seal. And you have to try getting your seal. If you don't pass the test, if you don't pass the video submissions, you can always try again. But you never know what opportunities can open up for you. You never know what doors are going to open up for you if you don't try. So I said to myself, you know what? I've been putting this on the table now for 10 years. I'm going to give it a try. If I don't succeed, I'll try again. But you know what? At least I gave it a go. And so I spent the next 2 years preparing for the exam, trying to go through the application process and everything. And then in August of 2018, I took the test for the first time and I passed with an 81 out of 75. So for people who are not familiar with that, in order to go through the certified broadcast meteorologist process for the AMS, you have to take an intensive 100 question exam, true or false, multiple choice, and you need a 75 or higher to pass. So, okay, I got the 81, I passed, great. And then came the video submission. And man, was I a nervous wreck those 60 days. I was trying to pick out my active day, my routine day. I was looking at my sheet, the evaluation sheet that the broadcast board looks over, and I was like checking off every box every day. Like, okay, did I get this graphic? Did I explain this well? Did I look presentable? Did I like? I was literally over analyzing every little thing. And then in November of 2018, I sent my submissions off to the AMS for the broadcast board to look over the submissions. And it was for it was the longest 3 months of my life, Matthew, let me tell you. Those holidays, I was literally like trying to enjoy the holidays, but I was a nervous wreck because I still did not know my fate. Um, February 16th of 2019. Uh, it started off as not a good day in my book. I just had a rough week at work. Um, I was just feeling really down. And I remembered I was running around. It was a Saturday, so I remembered it was my day off. So I was running around to the supermarket getting errands done, and it was a beautiful, beautiful winter day. We just had a snowstorm days before, so there was still snow on the ground and the sun was reflecting. And so I looked up and it was like the heavens had opened up for me or something. And I just looked up and I said, God, just let something good happen for me today. And I got home, I opened up my mailbox, and there was this huge white envelope from the American Meteorological Society. And I went, oh my Lord. I didn't exactly say that, but I'm not going to say some choice words. I'm not going to use some choice words in this interview, but I was like, oh darn, this is it. These are my results. So I opened up the white envelope and I was trying to like slowly open it up and try to peek through, but like I couldn't read the text. So I just started shaking out the envelope because I was too nervous to pull out the envelope.
Yeah, 1 inch at a time.
And then all of a sudden, I hear something drop on the floor. And I look down, and it was a pin. And the pin said AMS certified. I'm trying my best not to get too emotional right now. I still get emotional to this very day.
Yeah, it's a big moment.
When I saw that pin and it said AMS certified, I was like, I did it. I actually did it. And it was at that moment I realized if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish anything. And I think that mentality that I developed from getting my AMS CBM helped me 2 years later when I went through the NWA SEAL process. And then it was because of I became known as the poster child for the AMS CBM program because so many people knew my journey and how hard I have worked, the obstacles I had to overcome to get my CBM. People just looked up to me like, if she was able to get her CBM, I can get my CBM. And that opened up my door to the involvement with the AMS. I first got involved with the Station Scientists Committee. Eventually, I got on the AMS Board of Broadcast Meteorology, which evaluates candidates for the CBM. I just had the opportunity to be chair. I've had the chance to chair the 50th broadcast conference in Phoenix. I am going to be chairing the next broadcast digital conference in Houston after we get through the Boise conference now next month. So, I have been able to inspire others to become a CBM because of the process and the sacrifices that I went through to make this happen. And, through my involvement, I became part of the committee to start off the CDM, the Certified Digital Meteorologist SEAL process. And, because the reality is, TV, I wouldn't say TV is not dying. Broadcast news is not dying. But I will say that people are now going in a different route of where they get their news, where they get their information, where they get their weather information, things like that through streaming platforms, through social media. And, we have to recognize that there are meteorologists out there who are using these digital platforms and they don't have the broadcasting experience to apply for the CBM. So that's when I became part of the group to make the Certified Digital Meteorologist SEAL reality. And, in my current position at KQ2, I do digital meteorology after my morning show. So I qualified for the CDM seal. And since I already had the CBM, I didn't have to take the exam again. So that was a requirement we had. If you have your CBM, you didn't have to take the exam again. You just had to submit your digital work. So it was a much easier process for me to go through the certified digital meteorologist seal process. But actually, it's going to be 1 year this week. I became CDM number 15. So I always tell everyone the numbers 8, 1, and 5 are like my lucky numbers, because I was CBM number 815. I passed my exam with an 81%, and I'm CDM number 15. So I just say to people that 8, 1, and 5 must be my lucky numbers.
Those are your go-to lottery numbers.
Yeah, it's not enough to win the lottery, but hey.
Hey, it's something. All right, sounds good. I appreciate the time. Sounds like you got a lot of good stuff going on, and hopefully it keeps going well.
Oh, I will say, Matthew, this career has blessed me. I have been very lucky to not only have amazing people that I have created lifelong friendships I have met through this amazing career. I have been very blessed to give back to this industry and to help out future meteorologists, making sure they succeed in their dreams and their hopes and goals of this. So, as I'm now turning 40 next month, and I'm reflecting on what the last 10 years of my life in this career has taught me, I've learned, just never give up. And if you have that passion and you want something, you go for it at full force, because as long as you have that love and passion, nobody and anything is not going to get in your way.
Yeah, it's good advice for meteorology and just life in general too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate the time and hope you have a good day.
Big thanks to meteorologist Vanessa Alonso for taking the time to talk to me. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, and subscribe for more future content just like this.